In this video, we're going to talk about the types of tests that you can perform with the DataScout Ethernet test application. So to do so, the next button down, our last video was ports, so now we're going to move on to the next button down, select tests. When I tap on select tests, I'm presented a list of options. Now, not all these options may be active for you because there's a couple different options, software options that can be enabled. By default, if it is set up as a loopback only device, then only loopback will be active and the other buttons will be gray. If the Essentials package is turned on, and all standard DataScout units have the Essential package turned on by default, that's included in the base price, then you'll be able to perform quick tests, RFC 2544, and Loopback and IP Tools. If the Advanced Ethernet package is turned on, then you will have multi-stream and Y.1564 testing enabled as well. So if you have that and you do not have that option enabled and you need it, it can be activated in the field. Just contact your local Greenlee salesperson and issue a PO. We can activate the key and you can activate it right out in the field. Not a problem at all. So this first test, even though we're going in sequence of select tests, we're going to dive into quick test in the next video. I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about frame configuration, because frame configuration is required for every Ethernet test here, and it's all done exactly the same way, but it does take a little explaining, and I don't want to spend 5 or 7 minutes explaining how to set up an Ethernet frame in every video, so we'll take a couple minutes, do it here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and if you're following along from your office, you would tap on quick test. Now, mind you, the frame configuration is exactly the same in every other test, with the exception of RFC 2544, and I'll point that out when we get to that video. But every test application, when you bring up test function, you'll have a button that says frame config. And when you tap on that frame config button, it'll load up a new screen, a new view that's called frame config. So we'll show it here in just a second and pop up here. There we go. So this screen, you're going to see the screen on every different test. So I want to point out here and then we'll go through. First thing you have to do to configure it is understand that the configuration bar, the long green bar underneath, you'll notice that's the same format as a standard Ethernet frame. So when you start from left to right, you set your destination MAC address, the source MAC address, length and type, and then the type of payload that's being encapsulated within the Ethernet frame. We also have to tell the unit what size frame are we going to be transmitting. And then if it's a VLAN frame or a MPLS frame, IPv4 packet, IPv6 packet. So in this case, this screen is very consistent across all the different tests. First thing we want to do at the top, working from top to bottom again, we need to select our frame size. By default, we go to MTU, maximum transmission unit 1518, but if I tap the down arrow button, what you'll see now is that there's a list of standard frame sizes you can select from. So very quickly you can configure different frame sizes just by tapping on it. The second thing is we have a little button down here called eMix, Ethernet Mix. It's very powerful pseudo-random frame size generator, and then user defined. So you can define your own frame up to 9500 bytes jumbo simply by tapping the user defined and then entering whatever frame size you want, from minimum transmission unit up to a jumbo 9500. But in this case, I'm going to select eMix and show you how eMix works. It's pretty cool. So I tapped on eMix, and the screen that comes up next to it, there's a new button called eMix config. If I tap on eMix config, there's a new bar that pops up below the main Mac bar, and now what we're seeing is eMix configuration. So the way eMix works, you can define up to 32 sequences of different frame sizes, including user-defined frame sizes, simply by tapping on the letter of your choice. And this is called letter depth. We support up to 32 individual letters or frame sizes in an Ethernet eMix configuration. So what will happen is it starts with the first frame size you selected, moves on to the second one, third one, fourth one, and when it hits the end, it starts over again with the same frame size again. same sequence again. So you can create some very complex test patterns simply by using Emacs, and this is available in every test except for RFC 2544 as a different type of test. So what you'd want to do is in Emacs config, you just tap on whatever letter you want. So in this case, I did an A, and then we'll do, say, another frame size here. So let's do an A, and then a B, and then a C. So there we popped up a B, a C, didn't pick up my A, my finger's a little bigger. So let's go back and do an A again. And then there we go, there's our A, and then maybe an F, an E, and a G. And then maybe a user define. Now user define here, if I want to enter a user define, what I do is I press and hold the U button, and what's going to happen is it's going to pop up a menu and say enter the frame size. So now I can actually put in say a 258 byte frame size and say OK. And now when I press the U button, I'm now entering a 250 byte frame size too, or even an MTU. Now I can fill this all the way up with 32 different characters in any different combination that you would like. If we want to delete one of those, we just press the delete button and it deletes the last one entered. In this case, the U goes away. If I want to clear out the entire configuration and start over again, I just tap clear all. Or I can tap OK. Alright, so that's Emacs. I'm going to go ahead and put that back to a 64 byte frame size or 1518 just so that we're consistent across our videos. To set the destination address, you tap on destination on the bar and you'll have a destination pop up that allows you to set the destination address. Now on this screen, the nice thing is we display the destination MAC address of port B automatically. So we're assuming that you're testing around a ring and coming back into your second port and using port B as a loopback to send the traffic back the other way. But if you don't, you can either tap right on the destination MAC address and enter your own MAC address of another far-end device. Doesn't have to be a Greenlee device, it can be any standard Ethernet tester. You can do set to port A if you're doing dark fiber testing, so you're coming out on a fiber transmit, hitting a loopback plug and coming back again. That allows you to actually set to port A and do dark fiber testing without ever knowing the MAC address. Hit port A, OK, you're done. Okay, so that's how that works. VLAN, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out now. Depending on if you're using 802.3 framing or Ethernet 2 framing, you would just tap whichever one you wanted. VLAN, when you tap VLAN, it brings up another menu directly below your destination. And it allows you to enter up to 8 individual VLAN tags. So we can support nesting up to 8 individual VLANs within each other. You can set the individual number of your tag protocol ID, the priority, discard eligibility flag, obviously the label ID of the VLAN, and then let's say we do multiple tags. If I press the down arrow button, it's very common sometimes to do 3 VLAN tags in a carrier situation. So now I have 3 individual tags and I can configure each one to be different. I can set different priorities, I can set different discard eligibility, obviously different label IDs. If I want to clear all this out, I would just press the delete button. Notice though, when VLAN is turned on, because VLAN is a part of the Ethernet frame, you now see that there's a VLAN. And in this case, we're being asked to put in a VLAN ID, so I'll just do 2, just to be consistent, and then we'll say OK. So we're done. And then if I say OK, now it closes the menu and it shows that my VLAN is active. If I turn off VLAN, then that VLAN will go away from the bar. If I press MPLS, now what we see is the MPLS selector looks exactly the same as VLAN, very, very similar. But we can transmit unicast and multicast MPLS tags. We do support up to 8 tags as well. For tag nesting. Set your priority. Your S bit is always the bottom of the stack bit, so your last tag, which has to have the S bit turned to 1. You can set different time to lives, and the same as VLAN, you can either press OK to accept the setting, or you can hit delete to close it. And notice the MPLS tag appears on the bar as well. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete just to get rid of that, make things simple. And we'll turn off VLAN as well. IPv4, IPv6 work very similarly. Now, IPv4 and IPv6 is included in the base price of the DataScout unit. So it's not an additional software option at this time. We figure IPv6 is here. It should be a standard item. So IPv4, IPv6 works very, very similar. If I press the IPv4 button, it's going to ask us to put in our time to live, defaults to 255, put in your source and destination IP. You can also set your type of service, and your DSCP flags will pop up. The nice thing here is that we display it in plain English, so you can look at it and you know low drop, medium drop, high drop, what type of class it is, your class selector group, and we display it not only in hex but also in binary, so that if you're looking at a configuration manual and you have a particular hex or binary value, you can tap these buttons until you find one that matches and you're ready to go. If you're not using that, we can go ahead and press the X button and close that out. IPv6 works exactly the same. The only difference is that we support long and short notation for IPv6. So you can use the double dash, the double colon to truncate your entries, and we support all common types of short notation for IPv6. So that's really Ethernet configuration. That's the reason why I wanted to take a little extra time to discuss it in a separate video. You can see it took a while to go through all the different settings. But it's very, very powerful. The traffic generation engine in the DataScout is very powerful and very flexible. So as we get into multi-stream testing in video after next, what you'll see is that each stream can have a separate configuration and can have a separate emix configuration. So you can really make a very, very robust test case setup for your network and put a lot of stress on it and see how it performs under different conditions. So we'll stop here now that we're done with frame configuration, and then we'll move on and actually talk about quick test, which is a BERT test. So we'll stop here.